today at Capstone we have an admissions team, and they handle all the calls, and they do a great job. In the early years, I talked to 99% of the parents that would send in an assessment or call and ask, for help. And one of the most prominent questions that was asked, and it's still one of the most prominent questions, is what if my son is unwilling to go to treatment? And what I would say to parents is most of our guys are not willing to go to treatment. I mean, think about it. Be 24 or 20 or 17 or 14, and someone says, hey, we're going to go to treatment for, 100 days. I'm like, no, I don't think I really want to go do that. I'm going to be missing school or missing baseball or missing Sally Jane or TV shows or whatever. Not many young people want to go to treatment. And so it's almost like then you're normal if your son's unwilling, meaning unwilling, he's not coming in and saying, oh, Mom and Dad, would you take me to treatment? Or Mom and Dad suggest treatment, and he goes, oh, I've been waiting on you to ask. Yes, I'm ready to go. That just doesn't happen hardly ever. And so it is always a process of how do you get a son who's unwilling to go to treatment to comply and go to treatment. That's really the answer. And there's 5 basic avenues for a kid to get in treatment. One, and we have this happen sometimes, but it's very rare, a young man, and we've had it at 14 and 15, and we've had it at 24, will come to the parents and say, I need help. I can't do this, and I'm in trouble with an addiction or whatever, and I need to go to treatment. Now, again, that's going to be a very small percentage at this age. But if that happens, thank God, and get him in the car and go. Because one thing parents need to understand is if a testosterone-driven male at these ages, who basically feels like he has an S on his chest and he's invincible, says, I need help, that's an indicator light that is very bright saying, I am in trouble. And so parents don't need to try to talk a kid out of that. If he needs help, then you need to find out what he can tell you up front and then take the ball and run with it. The second way that they get into treatment is that a parent happens to have a relationship with the son in a way that they can say, son, this is enough, get in the car, you're going to treatment, and the boy complies. Now, obviously that would be many times more a young person, but other times, we've seen a few times it was somebody older that was probably almost broken internally anyway, and that's why they complied. But we actually had one dad that went to his son who had an antique car that was kind of his pride and joy to work on, but it was in the father's name, and the father went in and said, okay, get in the car, you're going to treatment, or I'm selling the car. And the boy said, okay, and went in. So, the first 2 ways are kind of the gifts, and if you've got one of those, the son complies, the son asks for help, then honestly, thank God all the way to treatment, because you just got a gift. So for 90+% of the parents that would ever get on our website or ever think that maybe my son needs treatment, they are not going to have a willing participant in that at the beginning. Most of the time, the vast majority of parents get their sons to treatment in 3 primary ways. And one we call the 2 roads choice. The second one is the family intervention, and the third one is the professional intervention. The 2 roads choice works many times. It's at the core of all interventions that, you're going down this road, it's not acceptable anymore, we're going to give you these options, but then if you don't choose it, we're going to give these responses. It works many times. When it's a little more difficult than that, the family intervention, which is basically, mom, dad, if there are 2 parents and the inner circle, and they go through 3 rounds that I'll explain, and that works, even more times. But if parents are looking at their situation and they're saying, you know what, my son, this is a very difficult deal, there's high risk here, I'm afraid for his life, I'm not so sure that we are confident on how to pull this family intervention off, then they need to get a bigger gun, and they need to get a professional interventionist. And we've had several of the best in the country, if not the world, that have worked with us, and we can give referrals to, and man, they do an excellent job with it. Now, again, there's some situations that it's not needed, but when it is needed, that's money well spent to be able to use professional interventionists. So when you consider what is basically out there as far as knowledge in the masses, you will hear a lot of phrases like, a person has to want treatment to be able to to get treatment or for treatment to work. A person has to ask for help. A person that's addicted has to hit bottom before anything's going to change. And that is true when you're dealing with a mature adult. But it really is not true when it comes to adolescents and young adults. And there's three primary reasons for that. The first is the prefrontal cortex of the brain does not fully mature until the mid-20s. So you will hear parents of kids that are in treatment and parents of kids who are not in treatment make statements about their children and say something like, "Oh, he's so impulsive. I can't believe he did that." And it's really not being impulsive oftentimes or being ADHD oftentimes. It's oftentimes that's just the nature of the animal when it comes down to their brain is not fully developed as far as that prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is the place where good decisions are made, the place where abstract thinking occurs, the place where there's logic, where they connect the dots. If I drive my car at 100 miles an hour on an icy street, it's probably not going to turn out good. You have a lot of guys, and, all of us guys remember being at that place, making some really stupid decisions, and that's why they're not going to be hitting bottom. They're not going to be very often. They're not going to be, asking for help. A second reason is their testosterone level. It's the nature of the age that, you say things to young men all the time and trying to coach them about this danger or that safety issue, and it's like, I got it. Yeah, I used to say the same thing. I have a few surgeries on my body that I got out of doing some of those kind of things. But the testosterone and that invincibility feeling is something that is just normal, and it's like, so you can't sit there and expect someone who thinks they can, leap tall buildings to think that they need help or that they're going to hit a bottom. The third reason is that it's really the nature of addiction, no matter how old you are, is that you're in denial and you intellectualize, you rationalize, you minimize, etc. So, from one angle, you could say that, anybody that goes to treatment, but especially the younger people and especially younger males, they don't have to buy into treatment at the beginning. But everybody, for treatment to be successful, has to buy into it at some point. And so one of our boys from years ago came up to me one time and said, "Hey, Adrian, Capstone's like a crock pot." And I looked at him and smiled because I knew something was coming, and I didn't know if it would be serious or a joke, but it sounded like a joke in the making. But he said, that to me, and I said, "How so?" And he said, "Well, you turn it on low, you put us in it, and you cook us real slow." And I'm like, you know what? That's really what residential treatment anywhere is about, is that you pull someone out of the loop and you put them in a place that there's a slow saturation cooking over 24/7 over a period of time. So when they come in, we've had boys that came in and didn't want to get out of the car, that they were shouting bad things at their parents, and we've had others come in, kind of down and discouraged and having to acquiesce to the fact that they're going to have to do this. We've had others come in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed that, "Oh, this is great." And it's like, in what status or state that they're in when they get there has no predictability of what they look like when they leave. We have seen some of the worser ones, as Coach Moat would say, turn out to be some of the more better ones on the other end, as Coach Moat would say. So it's really not about, my son needs to want help, hit bottom, ask for help. It is about, can the parents come to the point they believe we have got to do something to save our son, and he is going to have to go to treatment, and stand as a united front and get him there, and then you let the crock pot, take place after that. And when parents are talking to their sons, there's so much emotion in the parent. I mean, it's like nobody knows all the effort that parents have put into each one of their children, but there's been a lot of effort. Capstone parents are not bad parents. They're good parents. That's why our boys are such good boys. They have so many more good things about them than they do things that are challenging. But with all that effort and intention, and then you've got disappointments and hurts and things that are discouraging, there's a lot of emotion when you're reaching this crisis point, decision point. So we try to help coach parents that, you don't need to do any of this in anger. You don't need to use trickery, lie, be physical, degrading, use guilt trip techniques or preaching sermons or whatever. You need to be very calm and loving and very firm and very resolved in, we're going to do this, and then form that united front if there are two parents, and they can form a united front. Married, obviously easier than divorced, but we've had some parents that were divorced that formed a stronger united front than some of our parents who were married. But the united front is the strongest piece of getting a son to comply and get into treatment that exists. And when there's a single parent, which we've had a lot of single parents that bring their sons to Capstone, the united front is still a very significant, component of this. But it's not a united front between two people. It's a united front within the one person. Because one of the most significant things in the research that is pointing to problems with children and young adults is called inconsistent nurturance of control. And what this means is a kid comes in late and the parent overreacts with anger and discipline, etc. And the next time they come in late, they go, "Well, son, I love you so much. Please don't do that again." And the son really has a big time unpredictability. Well, these parents react by being so lenient or react by being so strict. When, in reality, and the research says that it's really about if you're really too lenient all the time or really too strict all the time, that those are better than being one or the other and there being no predictability. Now, obviously, the best is to not overreact in either direction. But when it is a single parent, oftentimes they have the same conversation between me and myself going on in their head. Do I send him? Do I not send him? Or maybe that's true, maybe that's not true. And so for them to come to the point that internally they have a united front, meaning a firm resolve, this has got to happen. A child will smell that, if you will. And that's a very strong thing when they come to the point. Mom or dad, or mom and dad, they're not going to put up with this anymore. I'm going to have to go. And then again, you go back to let the crockpot do its work. So the next kind of angle, the third way that people get in, is the two roads choice. And the two roads choice is just a simple conversation between, if there are two parents, two parents. If there's one parent, then the one parent can do this. Is to sit down with the son, and I believe in being very relaxed and being very calm, and not boxing the kid in and make him think, boy, the big guys are fixing to come out of the closet and drag me off, and just have the conversation something like this. Son, me and mom, look at your situation, and we do not think you're headed in the right direction. And we believe that if you continue in this direction, that things are going to get really bad. So we've made a decision that we want to give you, and then you get to make your decision on it. And basically, it's the two roads choice, because you're at a fork in your life, fork in the road. If you continue down the road you've been on, we have made some decisions of our response to that. We want you to go to treatment at Capstone Treatment Center or wherever, and we've made decisions of what we're going to do if you decide that you're going to comply with that. If you choose to go to Capstone, we're going to continue to pay for the car, whatever they're currently doing, pay for your school, support you with a cell phone, give you a place to live, blah, 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 whatever the family's already doing. Once in a while, there would be a family that would say, and then when you get back from this, as long as you stay on track, we're going to even add this to that. And it doesn't need to be buying them a Porsche. It needs to be something, obviously, that is realistic, that would help them continue to take ownership of their adult life. But if you decide not to go the other road to Capstone, the other road is to stay on the one you're on, then this is what we've decided to do. Your car will be sold. We will not pay for your car insurance. We will not pay for your cell phone. And it is about what is developmentally appropriate for that boy and that family. It's not like everybody does the exact same thing. I mentioned earlier the one dad who said, I'm selling the old antique car. In other cases, it's been, you're out on your own. You know what? You're going to kill yourself. You're going to kill other people. You're hurting the family like crazy, and I'm not going to support you, so we're changing the locks on the doors. That's a pretty intense one, but sometimes that's what it takes, to do this. Now, if parents have a history with the son of making threats and not coming through with it, with overreacting with anger and saying, you're grounded for a month, and then let them off for a week, and then they say, here's the two roads choice for you, son, the son's not going to believe them that they're going to back up what they're saying on this road, that they stay on the current direction that they're in. So parents are going to have to hold steady longer and show that united front, whether it be between two of them or that firm resolve within one. until the son believes it. And they may have to sell the car. They may have to say, you're out of the house on your own. They may have to press the charges or call the probation officer in order for the son to go, okay, they mean it this time. But the two roads choice is I think, a wonderful way to approach a son, because it's saying, you know what? We're not going to wrestle you. We're not going to tie you up, duct tape you, and ship you off. You got a choice to make. We just want you to know we've already made our choices dependent upon which way you go. And we want you to have all the information on the table, and then you make it. Now, many times that works. That's just that firm resolve and laying it out. It works, and you don't have to go any further. If, however, a son is going to be more resistant and a parent or parents need more backup, you can do the family intervention. The family intervention is basically this. Remember the last one that I did with a client family, there were 22 people in the room, besides the son that we were working on. There's been others that I've done that there's been 6 in the room, and I'm not a professional interventionist that have done hundreds. I've done dozens. You get the people that have clout with the son, not the people the parents wish had clout with the son. We've had parents sometimes that wanted to get the youth minister to come in where the kid didn't have any kind of relationship at all with him, and that's going to be very counterproductive. Or maybe get the school principal to come in because he's a prominent figure in the community, and if the kid does not have a good relationship with him, that's going to backfire. So you only want the people, number one, that have clout with the kids. So that's going to be immediate family, inner circle friends, and maybe a coach or a teacher or somebody special that's a youth minister that really kind of knows what's up and has had that good relationship. But then second, all of those people have to be in on it, meaning they all have to be willing to hold the line that they're going to set if they go through the 3 rounds of the intervention. If you had mom, dad, brother, sister, and if it's a younger sibling, you have to make a decision on how young do you go. Matter of fact, when I've done it before and there's been like 2 and 3-year-olds, either nieces or siblings, I will have them come in and go over to the son, to say they love him and give him a kiss or something and then leave, because I don't want them to be in there in case the fireworks start. But I do want to kind of break his heart a little bit with them as they come over, and that's been helpful the times that I've done it. So you need the people that have clout, and you need people that are willing to hold the line. Let's say you had mom, dad, siblings, aunts, uncles, coaches over there, and then you had grandmother. And grandmother is like, when it comes down to the final deal of, no, I'm not going to give you any support, she says, I just can't do that to him. And we've had, honestly, a lot of grandparents that really put their grandsons' lives in jeopardy because they were going to continue to give them money, and they were going to continue to be in la-la land about what was going on with addiction. And so mom and dad, or if it's just a mom or a dad, have to be the ones that make the decision. You're in on this or you're not in on this, because they are the ones that are going to be the primary people responsible for how that thing turns out as far as the family's part is concerned. So you get in a circle, and if there is a mom and a dad, usually the dad is the best person to be the facilitator of the intervention. And it's for these reasons. One, the age at which our boys are usually the age in which they are rebelling against the mother. Meaning, John Eldredge says in his book, Wild at Heart, that femininity cannot bestow masculinity. So a lot of times, mom is somebody who ain't going to tell me what to do in this deal, so dad would have a better chance of doing it. A lot of times, it is that the developmental stage that the boy is at, that he is looking for a man in his life at that age. But a lot of times it is because the dad has been more emotionally distant, maybe even physically distant, work, etc. Mom has been more the primary parent of being engaged and involved, etc. Matter of fact, some of our situations are where dad has not actually been there in that kind of connection and the raising of the son and being not a buddy, but filling what we call the daddy hole in the heart with his time, talk, touch, tenderness, things we call the 12 trust bridges. And so mom has seen the void in the son and tried to kind of fill it up, the void left by the father not being there as much. And that worked great when he was little, but then when that testosterone hits and he gets adolescence, he's going to push her away. So dad coming in means the Calvary's here. This is serious. Dad's not usually the one having these conversations, and he's in here. And that more often than not works best. However, each family is different, and it might be that in a particular family, mom is the best one to do that, and it might be that there is no father or there is no mother, and then obviously in that case, it's just going to be the parent. So the parent that is the leader in the intervention would be the facilitator of saying, would you go first, and kind of make it keep moving. And you do 3 rounds, and the first round's goal is to break the son's heart. And if I'm doing it and my wife is here, I would look to her and say, honey, you want to start? And she would say, son, I love you so much, and I believe you need treatment. Will you please go? Basically that. Then I would come in and say, son, I love you more than anything, and I just want you to get healthy and to be able to be well, and would you go to treatment? And then grandfather and grandmother, and you go all the way around, and it happens very quickly. And then I would say, son, you've heard your family express how much we love you, and we want you to go to treatment. What's your answer? Most of the time, you're going to get a no. And about halfway in between the N and the O of no, the dad needs to say, honey, you want to start the next round? And not let him say no and then respond, oh, please go, please go. It's like, of the no, honey, would you start? And round 2 is to break his spirit. Round 2 is the longest round. It is the round where most of the emotion comes out. And basically what each person is doing is saying, son, this is what your behavior and your attitude is doing to our family, is doing to me. It is not really a time to be shaming them and preaching to them in one sense, but it is a time to express, I'm staying awake all night long. I'm so worried about you. Every time the phone rings, I see what's changing in you, and you can unleash your emotion then, both in sadness and tears, but also anger. Because we try to, in those situations, stay even keeled so we don't turn the boat over. But when you're in round 2 trying to break his spirit, he needs to hear that he is wreaking havoc in his family and wreaking havoc in his own life as well. So you go through the same steps, and then dad says, son, your family has told you what effect you're having on your whole family and your friends and your inner circle. Will you go to treatment? And again, if you get a no, then as soon as it starts to come out of his mouth, you go to the same person that began the other 2 rounds, and they say the 3rd round is to break his will. And basically that's the 2 roads. Okay, son, you've decided not to go to treatment. This is how it's going to be. I am not going to let you in the house again if the son is of a proper age. We're changing the locks. I'm not giving you any more money. Do not come over trying to, pilfer for food in the cabinets. It's like, this is the boundary line that I am drawing. And this is one that you do, and you're very firm with it. And then the next person and the next person, so that no one in that group compromises this boundary line that is a healthy boundary line for the family to draw with him if he continues in this behavior. I've heard families say, and I am now pressing charges for you stealing the car. I am going to report that you sell drugs. But there's a lot of different things that are idiosyncratic per family that you would have people, to say. There are times where you might want to put this down in a letter so that if he does say, I'm out of here, you can give him the letter. A lot of times it's hard to conceptualize in an emotional situation what words are being said auditorily where you can go back and read it. But that's also up to a family. The thing you want to do in this kind of an intervention is to prepare for it. You get the right people in, and then you kind of practice. And you say, okay, what if he says, Granny, you told me you'd always love me. And Granny, how are you going to respond to that? You kind of do a little practice with it. But you have to balance the amount of practice and are you ready to do it with the crisis of the situation. And you delay so long, you create a last hurrah phenomenon, by giving him too much time of smelling something's up here. And again, you don't have to do this perfect. Your heart is going to come out in this. And it is, again, about that united front, power. When a family has a united front like that, it is a very powerful, thing. Let's say that you go into one, and I went into one Sunday after church, and I was locked and loaded. I told my wife I won't be back till after supper. And about 12:30, we sat down, and I did, the first kind of intro, and I said, okay, we'll start here with you. And it lasted about 3 minutes, and everybody said, I love you. Will you go to treatment? And I said, so son, you're family's told you they love you and they want you to go to treatment. So what do you say? And he goes, okay. So we already had the bags packed, which you need to always do. And we had the treatment center with a bed open and we were ready. We didn't have to, it didn't last 20 minutes. Now I've had others that lasted, for 2 or 3 hours. So you go into it prepared for the worst and hoping for the best. But in the end, you also have to be willing to let them walk out the door and then hold to what you said. We've had families before that did this or they did the 2 roads choice and the boy walked out and was gone for a few days. Most of the time it's a few days or a week or 2. Then came back and said, okay, you mean what you say, basically, I'm going to go to treatment. We've had others that it took a lot longer than that. But what I would want to tell parents in that situation is, if you believe the road he's on is going to lead to his death or some kind of catastrophe that he will not be able to regain normal life goals with, it's like you're actually risking him more by not doing an intervention than you are by doing it and then him walking out the door and living with Billy Bob, for 2 weeks or being on the street if that happened to ever be the case, which it's not very often. That's the higher risk to not do the intervention. Now, if it is a situation, for whatever reason, he is deep into the drug culture, very behaviorally and attitudinally defiant, parents are not so sure about how many people can be on the same page in their family, or parents are just so unconfident about doing it, which, listen, you're going to be unconfident because you don't get to practice this kind of thing every day, hopefully. And a parent says, you know what, I want to get the biggest bullet I can for this bear, and I'm going to call one of these interventionists that Capstone will refer you to and get them to help walk us step by step. And I'm telling you, I remember John Southworth saying at a conference once that, this whole business that we're in, the industry, is about loving people. And it is not about yelling and shouting and degrading. It is about loving people. And every interventionist that we have worked with will come in and be firm and wise and a lot of experience, but very loving, in doing an intervention. And so if it is that kind of a situation, we're absolutely, if you want to hire an interventionist, you go ahead and do it. We'll help you find the best in the business. When you've looked at the hundreds of boys that have come to Capstone, how do most of them get there from all those ways? Well, you get a handful that ask to come. You get a handful that their parents told them they're coming and they just obey and come. Most of them come with the 2 roads choice, that mom or dad would give them. You got 2 roads. We're not doing this anymore. Then you've got a minority that have the family intervention, and even a smaller minority that would have to use a professional interventionist. And, again, what I would say to people is, it doesn't matter. It's like it doesn't matter if he is sprinting to the car to go, saying thank you, Mom and Dad, or if you have to do a professional intervention and he's out for months before he, breaks and decides to come back. What matters is that you get him there, and then you let the crockpot go, because the successful outcome is not about how you got there or what his attitude is on day one. It's about what it evolves to be during the process. As a parent's going through this admissions process and the assessment process, and they get to the point that, yes, our son needs to be there, and they might have a situation that's not life-threatening, and they may have another week or 2 of college or of school, a wedding or something, and they don't feel like it's life-threatening. And then they've talked to us, and we don't think it's life-threatening at that time. Sometimes parents want to come and do a site visit of Capstone ahead of time. We've even had parents that, went through this battle for 1 to 2 years or more and are driving through Arkansas, and they call us and they want to just come see Capstone. And we're wide open to that. Sometimes the son comes, but we always coach parents, don't let your son come and give him a message that he has a vote on whether or not to do this. When you're doing the 2 roads, you're not giving, votes out on that. Now, if you're like saying, well, here's Capstone and here's, this other treatment center and this other treatment center, and, the son's, older and you want him to see it, yeah, bring him on. We'll show him. But you don't want it to be that, will you go now to treatment that you've seen the place? But coming by for a site visit and visiting ahead of time is weird. We welcome all comers on that one. So that could be helpful to some parents that had the ability to do that. Now, our clientele comes from 43 states and 3 countries outside the U.S. so far. So the majority of our boys are not in a place where they're going to be in driving distance. We've had several hundred, and the vast minority, less than 100, have come from the Arkansas area. So we actually have had people that have been from New York or someplace, California, and they, come by, they get a plane ticket and they want to come see it themselves, or they happen to be on a vacation, drive, and going through Arkansas or close to it. So we always welcome that for people to come by and see us.